Hey, good evening once again, or good morning once again, everyone. We're live tonight. It's the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown. Are you ready for another round of sound? Because we are. We have a lot to get into tonight. We'll talk about why Jim Rutherford believes Kessel and Malkin should be split up with the Penguins, who are on a roll, as I just said. But, of course, the #1 topic tonight on the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown will be the Steelers, who are now officially eliminated from the postseason after they win today, but also watch Baltimore do the same. And here's your panel tonight, left to right on your television screen. We have Will Graves with the Associated Press, always does a fine job. In the middle, it's Mark Kaboly, who writes for the Steelers on theathletic.com, and Tim Benz of Trib Live, as well as Steelers Radio Network. They're all here talking about what happened, and let's get right to it. And Tim, we'll start with you. Biggest reason for what is now a collapse from 7-2-1 to 9-6-1 and out of the playoffs. What would it be for you?
Biggest reason, and I'll stress biggest because that's what you said, it's not the only reason, but the biggest reason is their failure to protect leads in close games. 21-7 against the Cleveland Browns on the road before Baker took over while Hugh Jackson was still in charge. Against a non-playoff team in the Denver Broncos, they blew a second-half lead there. They blew a second-half lead of 16 points at home to the LA Chargers. They blew a 2-touchdown lead in Oakland, just to name a few, and they even blew one today against the Bengals and still managed to win. Oh, they blew one on the road against the Saints, too. At least that was a good team coming back in a tough place to play. But that, to me, is the biggest reason why we are talking about next year instead of next week. Their defense did not come up big time in big-time situations. I know a lot of people like to rip on Bud Dupree, but boy, did he sum it up well after the game. C.J. Mosley made an interception on 4th down against the Browns, something we couldn't do all year long, and that's why we're going home and they're going on.
I don't disagree with you, Tim. I mean, I think it's, you know, Ben was asked after the game which game he thinks back to. He said the Browns game, and that's a tough one. But the Browns actually turned out to be pretty good. I think the Broncos at that point in the season were playing pretty well. The Chargers are pretty good. It's the Raider game, to me, that is the one that makes you scratch your head. This sort of baffling decision on why Ben didn't come back in the game earlier. The thought that they could make it last with Josh Dobbs. I mean, that sort of mismanagement in that one game. In that one moment when one game that win would have gotten them in the playoffs is the one that stands out to me. But in general, as Tim pointed out, is systematic. I mean, and these weren't like rallies where there's a pick six and a fumble and you get short fields. I mean, they went the length of the field. The Chargers went 70 yards 3 times to win the game. That's the kind of stuff that, you know, you could be great the middle 50 minutes of the game, but if you're not good the last 10, it doesn't matter. And that's kind of what happened this year.
I think we need to put it in perspective a little bit, too. We're one play away, if you're the Steelers, of being, you know, what, potentially 14-2 this year in games. I mean, you could be. Benzie, just think about it here. I can run it down if you want.
No, I know you can run it down.
But
for every one play you give me, I'll give you 5 more in those games that put him in a position where that one play occurred. Tim, I gave you your time. Now give me mine.
Benzie, I'm saying, let me finish here. They could be 14-2, but they also could easily be 6-10 also. What I'm saying is there's a play here and there, and I don't think you can point to why it happened. That's all we've been asking for the past 2 or 3 weeks. Why? There is no definitive answer of why they did not make these plays. Why did Mike Hilton let, I don't even know the tight end's name from Oakland, catch the touchdown pass?
Tyler
Why did that
Eifert,
happen?
Was his name.
Oh, Benz.
Why did this happen? And another thing is, off of your point a little bit, I don't think the offense gets off scot-free either because, okay, the defense blew some leads, but you know what? The offense had chances to turn 4-point leads into 11-point leads, 10-point leads into 17-point leads, and they were never able to do that, let teams hang around against a defense that wasn't, you know, really great all year, and that's what happens. I just don't believe that there's anything you can point at and say.
Oh, I can.
What other word
sure I can.
Definitely.
I can point at a turnover ratio. I can
Turnover,
point
that was the word I was going to use.
Too many penalties on special teams. I can point at that defense that we talked
Special
about.
teams.
I can the penalties on special teams.
Okay.
I can point at a bad kicker. I can point at a quarterback that throws too many picks. I can point at a run-pass ratio that's out of skew.
But in the end, they all had chance to win 4 or 5 of those games, and they did not, and very few had to do with the kicker.
So
maybe the first one, that's it.
The kicker also won them a handful of games last year. So, I mean,
the kicker won one today, too.
If I pointed to last year, if I went to last year, Mark, and I said, well, they're 13-3, but, you know, a few plays here and there.
Absolutely.
They could have been 9-7.
Absolutely.
You would have said, no, winning is winning.
Right.
And that's how you define good teams. They win close games. Come on, don't give them the one play here or one play there.
All right.
But it's true.
This is a collapse.
It is a collapse just because they did not finish at the end of the games and turnovers both sides of the ball. They gave it up too much. They didn't make enough of them, as Mark said. I think that's a relevant point. Let's talk about what happens next, because typically when something like this happens, especially with a team that is expected to do well in what is now a wide open AFC, and maybe that's the most disappointing part of this whole thing. The AFC does not have one really dominant team. Every team has a flaw. If the Steelers had gotten in, that's what they're going to miss out on. But do they make changes, Mark, coaching staff-wise? Will there be change? If so, how big of the change?
I think it's going to be very minimal. I mean, every year there is some turnover that you don't expect. A coach retired and a coach moving on. But if you're thinking Mike Tomlin's getting the axe here in the next 2 or 3 days, you're crazy, and rightfully so. He should not get axed here because Benzi's going to jump on me on this one, too. Up until Thanksgiving, the Steelers won 20, lost 5, and tied 1 in the span of almost 2 years. A bad stretch does not mean that Mike Tomlin can't coach anymore. And there's a lot of layers to this of why he'll be back regardless. So first of all, you don't want to mess up anything with the offense. If you bring in a guy who's established in this league as a head coach, you get rid of Mike Tomlin, he's going to bring his guys in. Randy Fichtner's going to go. Then what happens? The quarterback's going to go. Josh Dobbs, your quarterback. You got to tie together, in my opinion, Mike Tomlin, Antonio Brown, Ben Roethlisberger. Put those guys together up until maybe 2021. If there's no Super Bowl champion by then you just clean house. Right now is not the time. There's going to be a couple here and there. Not Mike, right. Not Keith Butler either. And there's going to be a couple players. They got to get better players in free agency, in the draft. But I think everything else should.
But Mark, you know that's not what they do. They don't do that. They don't want to bottom out. They didn't even want to bottom out when they got Ben Roethlisberger. It just happened to happen before a really deep quarterback draft. They don't want to do that. I mean, you're talking like they're going to pull the plug and become the Pirates after the Cabrera hit. That's not how they operate.
Yeah. Right, but every other team in the league except for the Patriots, this is how it works. You go up and you go down. The Steelers managed to span generations without losing seasons. Going 15 straight years without losing seasons is not friggin' normal, people. It's not. People don't want to call for Tomlin said there are 28 other teams that would line up to hire him the next day. This is, I mean, you could, and the other thing is, who are you going to bring in? The window is this big. The window. Who you got, Benz? Who you got?
I don't know who's the next Sean McVay. Let me ask you this, Will.
You can't afford to bring in a 33-year-old guy with a old quarterback who's got 2 to 3 years left, and who has to win right now. Because when you fire a guy that has made the playoffs 4 straight years and fire him after going 9-6-1, the message is it's 13 years for you, next guy, or you're out. You can't do that. That's not fair to the guy coming in. It's not fair to the roster.
So what were they supposed to do when Bill Cowher retired out of nowhere? Give up because there's no one else to hire?
They had a young quarterback and a number 1 defense. They had a young quarterback and a number 1 defense. They do not have a young quarterback anymore, and they do not have a number 1 defense anymore.
If Bill Cowher didn't retire, he'd still be the head coach today, and probably with similar results. So that means Mike Tomlin never gets hired by the Steelers, and who knows, maybe doesn't get hired, period. There's another Tomlin out there, just like there's another Frank Reich waiting to be promoted,
or there's
just like there's another
Todd
McVay
Bowles,
waiting to be hired.
Or there are a lot of mishits, too, on there.
There's
and that's one of the all you see is that
too.
Rex Ryan is being mentioned in Miami, Caldwell and Chuck Pagano being interviewed in Green Bay. You can recycle that too.
You need a guy that was established that can win right now.
I love it. This is the way it's supposed to be. We're going to keep it going. We need to take a break. But before we do that, what's the most anticipated year-end matchup? It's matching you with the car, the truck, or the SUV of your dreams at #1 Cochran's big year-end wrap-up. Buy or lease any new vehicle now and get the year's biggest offers, plus a $500 Visa gift card. That's on top of their already low, clear-cut prices and all manufacturers' incentives. But you got to hurry because the big year-end wrap-up ends January the 2nd. It's exclusively at #1 Cochran stores and Cochran.com. Steelers Conversation continues next. The #1 Cochran Sports Showdown is brought to you by #1 Cochran. Go one better. And by Highmark Blue Cross Blue Shield. Have a greater hand in your health.